As Trinidad and Tobago celebrates yet another independence anniversary, it is a time for reflection and celebration, particularly as Weston Rollins, the mighty Crocro, said, "Citizens, this is reflection time." It offers us an opportunity to look back on the last 63 years and how things have changed not just politically, but socially as well. Throughout the month of August, I will have a series of special big interviews reflecting on an independent Trinidad and Tobago since 1962 with some of the country's most prominent people. The themes include sport, energy, finance, literature, all areas Trinidad and Tobago have excelled in for the last 63 years. And tonight, we will start with sport with four-time outspoken Olympic medalist Ato Boldon. Ato Boldon, welcome to the program.
Always good to be on with you, Ryan.
You're a former national athlete, four-time Olympic medalist, as well as a public figure. For you, what does independence mean to you personally?
It means that nobody tells you what to say and nobody tells you what to think. And I think the older I get, the more I am glad to have my own independence. NBC Sports lets me give my opinions freely. And although I technically have a boss, it's good to wake up every day and know that your opinions and your contributions are valued.
How has being an athlete in an independent Trinidad and Tobago shaped your identity, your sense of purpose?
I talk about it quite a lot, because I talk about the fact that sometimes in my dealings with Black people in America, and I go, thank God that I was born in a place where the Prime Minister, the President, everybody in power looks like me. I don't think that a lot of people get a sense of how important that is to a young child, and especially to a young child of color, because when you are born into a world where you see people achieving things for the first time, you also get the feeling that you too can go out there and achieve things for the very first time. So I think combined with the way my mother raised me, where yeah, feel the fear, son, but go out there and do it anyway. And whatever it is that you discover to be your talents, use them to the very most that you can. I credit where I was born and the things that I was allowed to see and experience, being raised in a place that is independent, for anything that I was ever able to do.
You represented Trinidad and Tobago for so many years, but can you go back to that first time you would have stepped out into the track to represent this country? What was that moment like for you?
Because I remember names and dates and places for a living, I don't have any problem with that question. It was Tegucigalpa, Honduras. It was 1992, and it was the CAC juniors. I could probably remember who was in the race, including Kareem Street Thompson of the Cayman Islands, who remains my friend to this day. I don't think when you're that young you have a sense of that kind of purpose. I had been running high school track. I had been discovered. I had come back home. I had won the Olympic trials in the 100. And then that was just the next thing that I was doing. So it wasn't a sense of, okay, here I go. This is the first step, into a career that's going to, take me another 10, 15 years. And then, a career as a broadcast and all the other stuff that I've been able to do. So did I have a sense of, okay, this is clearly not high school track anymore? Yes, I did. It was my first international competition. I think my next international competition after that would have been the Olympics, which was a colossal failure on my part. And then the World Juniors double, and the history came about a month after the Olympics. So that whole year of 1992 was me having highs and lows, which is kind of the way that all sports careers go. So as a result, I was well equipped for what was to come in the forthcoming years.
How do you think being an independent nation, Ato, sort of influence the evolution of our sports from 62 beyond?
Well, I think you have the power to decide how you want, what kind of sporting nation you want to be. Look, if you're growing up and you are in Kenya, chances are you're going to be headed towards the distances. But there's other countries in Europe where if that's what you grow up in, then then you're more inclined to take up something like handball, where that's the number one sport. I grew up in a country where cricket and football were king and still are. So although we had Hazley in 76 and of course Wendell Motley and all the guys that came before that in 64 and 68, or going all the way back to Rodney Wilkes and our first Olympic medalist. Um, I grew up in a society where football and cricket were what you aspired to. So I wanted to play football. And then they discovered I had this other talent to do something else. But the fact that I was able to have those choices and to make my own choice, I think was very special for me because I'm sure my father to this day would love me to be a goalie like he was, or to be playing football like he did. Um, and that just was not the case. I had options to do other things, and I look at the number of sports that Trinidad and Tobago excels in. I mean, for a small country, we have swimming medals and weightlifting medals and 4x1 medals and a javelin gold medal. So I just feel like when you are born into that sort of a country, you have a sense of anything is possible. And if there's something that I see that I want to do, then I'm going to go for it.
You say something very interesting, the diversity of accolades when it comes to sports in this country. A very early independent Trinidad and Tobago saw the rise of the Trinidad and Tobago netball team as world champions as well. You talk about our success in swimming and javelin throwing. A little boy from Toko making it to the Olympic Games in London and winning gold medal. What do you think has been the key ingredient for such success from a small twin island nation?
The truth is that we are very resilient as a society. And I see it not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but you see it all up the Caribbean. You see people who do not have that much in terms of resources. And God knows in Trinidad and Tobago, we probably have more resources than most. But we used the little that we had and took our spirit, learned as much as we could from those who maybe were a little bit further in the race and knew a little bit more. And we took those things and we were able to do amazing things. It's one of the things that I lament now. I say we are doing worse now with more. And I worry that some of our dearly beloved ancestors who have gone before us are looking at us in TNT and going, we did so much more with so much less. But no, what gave us our historic sort of legacy, our legacy, and the reason why it's so strong is because we were doing more with less. I think we're doing less with more now.
Interesting, very interesting point. You traveled to Germany for what many people, I mean, when I say many people, I certainly consider it the highest moment of my lifetime when it comes to Trinidad and Tobago history, being able to watch my country at a football World Cup, at a FIFA World Cup. You actually traveled to Germany for that FIFA World Cup. It really is one of the most major achievements in the sporting landscape of this country. When you look at that success, how much do you feel like it defined Trinidad and Tobago after trying for so many years, so many decades to qualify for a FIFA World Cup, and ultimately it happened in 2005?
Yeah, that is not a memory I will ever forget. I don't think when I was growing up watching Mexico 80s, and I remember I am not a Debbie Downer. I am not a pessimist, but I'm a realist, and sometimes the two get confused. And I think because I am such a student of sports history, I was wary at the time. You will remember that my DVD based on that trip to Bahrain and then to the World Cup was called Boldon and Bahrain Once in a Lifetime. Of course, that was one of the first things CNC3 did. I remember people were being upset at me saying, why would you name it Once in a Lifetime? We're going to go back to the World Cup. And I said, well, our sporting history nationally shows that when something happens and it should be like the bright spot and lead to something better, we actually go in the opposite direction. So it's a bittersweet moment for me to look back at, it's now 20 years ago. It's a bittersweet moment for me to look back at it because I feel like that should have been the catalyst for greater things, and the football just has not gone where we thought it would.
I also want to talk about a couple other high points before we get into the analysis of our sport today. Let's reflect Hazley Crawford in '76, and then Keyshawn Walcott in 2012, and before that, 2008, the 4x1 team. Of course, they were almost given it almost over a decade later. Those gold medals, 3 gold medals, Olympic gold medals for this Twin Island nation. When you reflect on that, Ato, as someone who also went to the Olympic Games and also won silver and bronze medals, how do you reflect on such a small nation having 3 Olympic gold medals?
Um, it's very significant, no question. And I think that if we're being honest, what Hazley did back in 1976 obviously is kind of that's the king. That's the king of everything that we've done. I think that the football World Cup was a big deal too. But if you ask the rest of the world what our biggest achievement is, I don't think there's a close second. To be the first man from the Caribbean to win that gold medal, and then looking at how long it took for another one to win it in that event, you'd have to it's him and Bolt, and that's the two. I think you have to. I wouldn't want to lump the three of those together, although the three of them are very significant. They are significant for different reasons. When Keshawn wins that gold, being a junior and the way in which he did it, and it being in a field event. I say all the time, if I'd have gone to sleep for 20 years and slept through that time period, and I woke up and you said, okay, we now have another gold medal. What event is it in, Ato? I would have guessed steeplechase before the javelin. But it was a reminder to us that the talent exists in our midst. If you find it and nurture it, it will come to fruition. The 4x1 is very special to me because I coached the first women's team to win a medal at the global stage in 2015, and I coached the silver medal winning team way back in 2001. It was one of those deals where it was like, let me get this relay going before I retire. I may not get to the promised land with you, but this is my service back to my country. So to see those guys, even if it was retroactively, win that medal, that gold medal in 2008, was extremely special for me because I know what the genesis of that whole mission was. And it culminated in not just that gold, but Olympic silver, Olympic bronze, world championship medals as well. So it kind of set the relay on the correct path, I think.
You know, one of the things that always, not surprised for lack of a better word, but it's certainly, always made me very curious was the number of sports that we play in Trinidad and Tobago. Small island, but we do play a lot of different sports. Handball, table tennis. Some people like to say they like to include chess and checkers and all of these things. A lot of different smaller sports. And we do know that track and field is one of the most popular sports in the country. We do know that cricket and football, like you mentioned, are king. But as it always, you're a man of sport as well. Has it always surprised you, the number of sports we as a nation have been enrolled in down the decades?
We are natural athletes. As somebody who now, I have 70 clients in the NFL. Sport is not just what I have done for a living. It has now become who I am. I can't tell you how many times, and this up and down the islands, but particularly when I am back home in Trinidad or Tobago, I see young girls and young boys walking around. I go, boy, that is a quarter mile body, or that is a sprinter's body, or that is somebody who should be doing sport X. But it's a matter of sometimes it becomes a economic impasse where you have somebody who, look, they're just trying to like get through life and survive from day to day. And yeah, sport is not necessarily their priority, but we have tons of talented people in yes, in sports, but in all sorts of things. But because sometimes there's a blockade between them having the talent and somebody being able to, one, identify the talent, and two, to do something to get it forward. We just there's a lot of waste that happens, unfortunately, in our country.
What do you think sport has done for Trinidad and Tobago? I know that it's made us celebrate, it's made us struggle, it's broken our hearts many times. But what do you think sport down the decades, 63 years, what do you think, what role has sport played in this country's history, Ato?
I think it has given us immense respect on the world stage. I remember one of my earliest conversations with my coach, John Smith. And he is somebody who to this day has the world record in the 440 yard event. Obviously, it's not being run anymore, but he still has the world record from way back in the day. And we were talking and we were just getting to know each other back then. We've now known each other for 33 years. And I remember him talking about the only time that he was really afraid on a track. And then as he tells the story, I realize that the team that he's afraid of is our TNT's world record 4x4. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, I think at the time, and still do, of John Smith as one of the baddest men on the planet. And here he is telling me that he's afraid of, 4 or 5 of my countrymen. Think of when you hear Kenyan marathoner or when you hear Brazilian footballer, there's certain things that just kind of go along with it. And that's why as much as I love football and enjoyed being there to support the World Cup guys, the rest of the world doesn't fear us in football, at least not yet. The rest of the world has, in terms of sporting respect, our sporting respect has come from the sport of track and field, and that's just a reality. And if you doubt that, go downtown and look at those medals and look and see which medals, how many of those medals are in track and field, and how many of those medals are in other sport. I think that our sporting history has given us great respect, from Hazley and even before that, Rodney Wilkes and the crew in the 60s, come all the way up to Kishon, and even what Jareem did last year in getting fourth in the fastest time for fourth ever. Those are the kinds of things where the entire globe is watching, and you have somebody from this tiny island nation, in their eyes, that's able to stand on a podium. Think of what St. Lucia and Julian Alfred now. Think of how they mesh, and how people who have never, I know people who had never heard of St. Lucia, who were calling it St. Lucia in Paris, who now they will forever remember that country because of what Julian Alfred did.
We've done so well, but as a Trinidad and Tobago spectatorship, we always expect so much, Ato. And you would know this because as an athlete, you weren't always praised, you were also criticized. And you're not the only one, but you would have been on the receiving end of it. For such a small nation, do you feel like because of our success, we have become spoiled and the public expects a high standard every time a Trinidad and Tobago sporting team goes out onto the field of play?
I don't think anybody can be in public life in TNT and not be criticized. That's just not who we are. That's the first thing. So to me, that's par for the course. And I look back at some of my back and forth with the press and the public and all of that, and I go, that made me better. It certainly made me more thick-skinned. I think that our sporting public, all of us, we got spoiled a long time ago, and we felt like it was always going to be this way. However it was good enough, and it was always going to be this way. And now we look up, I don't think sports has ever been worse for us right now, especially given what resources we have, or at least appear to have. It goes back to what I was saying about we are now doing less with more. So when we were only winning, when all Ato could do was win a bronze, or when all Ian Morris could do is get fourth, or when Gene Samuel missed a medal in 1984, maybe the criticism was a little too harsh, because now there's nothing to have and people go, wow, how did we get here? Well, when you when you take care of the little you have, you're rewarded with more. When you scorn the little you have, sometimes the universe finds a way to take it away. So yeah, we've been complacent and very, very kind of I didn't want to say haughty, but we were very, very spoiled. If you look at our country's sporting history, from just go the decade from 1960 to 1976, just go that decade and 6 years. Yeah, we were very spoiled because we felt like everything was going our way, and then yeah, we had 20 years with nothing in the Olympics, and yeah, we had the strike squad in between there, and we had some blips, but no, I think we got very, very complacent, and I think we got very, very overconfident, and we're paying the price now.
Yeah, let me just pick you up on that point that you made. You talk about being overconfident, and you know, do you fear sometimes, and I might be asking this question in the wrong way, but you'll get what I mean. Do you fear that success is in sport in this country is a little bit of a, it's not planned, it's not strategic, it just comes?
Absolutely, absolutely. Most of the people, certainly in my sport, who have done well and have done great things for the country, have done so in spite of a lot of obstacles in the way, and not because of some sport administrator. And I don't want to just kind of dump on every sports administrator, because they're not all bad, but there have been there have been a lot more bad than good, if I'm being honest. And it's why, and this is not a athletics thing or a cricket thing or a football thing. Look across the board at all of our sports. Look at the history, look at the recent history, look at the further history, and then you tell me, how can we be happy, satisfied, or complacent with the way sport is looking right now in TNT? Because, as I said, I don't think it's ever been worse. And I know that there are people who have a lot more degrees and know-how in terms of sports administration than I do. But the one thing that is consistent is that as long as the old dinosaurs are allowed to stick around forever and ever and ever, and there's no injection of new thinking, new blood, new ideas, new outlook, nothing is going to change. And it's why, despite a number of calls to my phone, I am like, I don't, I'm of the firm belief that you cannot solve problems with the people who caused the problems in the first place. And quite frankly, that's what I'm seeing now, which is why so many of these federations are in court in some sort of litigation.
As we reflect on 63 years of independence, Ato, given everything that you've said, and given the social challenges that this country faces on a day-to-day basis, what role does sport play in the next chapter of development in this country?
Part of what I think disturbs me the most is how divided we seem to be. I am 52 this year, so my upbringing in Trinidad and Tobago would be a little different. I see the fracturing, I see the splintering of a lot of things in our society. We have to remember that sport is one of the few things that we have left that can unite us. Because you and I both know this. If the Soca Warriors, or whatever we're calling them this year, if they were able to qualify for a World Cup, you would get back the magic of 2005, when we felt like there was a unity. There's Sports still has such a role to play. I remember the words of the late great Nelson Mandela in that speech, giving, just explaining to the laureus awards audience gathered there, that when a lot of things fall by the wayside and you can't unite people in this, and you certainly can't unite them in politics and lots of other things, sport is the thing that can get a country back on the right track socially. So it really is sad that we don't have something right now that we can all say, hey, let's kind of rally around the West Indies, or rally around the Warriors, or the relay team, or anything. That is really a huge gaping hole, I think, in our collective hearts.
Ato Boldon, thank you for your service to our country, and thank you very much for making yourself available for this interview.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Happy Independence Day, Ato.
And same to you and everybody else out there.